Welcome back, wannabes and creators, to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that attempts to demystify business for artists. And today, we're opening the books and showing you how we did at San Diego Comic-Con. Before we do that, though, I want to remind you that our Kickstarter course, Crush It on Kickstarter, is still on Teachable. And because you guys keep buying it, I'm going to still keep offering it for just $7. That's right, everything that used to be behind the paywall at Kickstarter University, I have repackaged and rebundled on a course on Teachable for $200. But for you, loyal listener, I'm offering it for just $7. That's right. If you go to thebusinessofart.us/Kickstarter course, you can get all of that amazing information on how to market, how to set up, how to distribute, and how to crush your Kickstarter campaign for just $7. These are the tips, tidbits, and tricks that I've used to fund 4 different campaigns, and I'm offering it to you for just $7. So head on over to thebusinessofart.us/Kickstarter course and pick up your course today. You will not regret it. All right, so now that that's out of the way, let's get on with the show. We are going to end our Comic-Con special episodes with a complete look at our financials from this year. I'm going to state for the record that these are rough numbers because I don't have complete financials from 2015. I didn't start keeping detailed financials until this year. However, I can tell you that we sold 350 units last year and made a total of $52.50 in revenue. That roughly broke down to 153 copies of Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, 75 copies of Convenience Store Diet, and an assortment of Gumshoes, Paradise, and Little Bird and Little Worm, which equaled the other 122 units. Before we can get into a detailed analysis, we need to do a comparison of 2015 and 2016. Now, I'm going to talk about 2 factors. First is total books sold, and the second is total revenue. So let's start with total books sold. 2015, we had 350 units sold, and 2016, we had 247 units sold. That's a difference of minus 103. So we sold 103 less units this year than we did last year. Total revenue tells a similar story. In 2015, we sold $5,250 in revenue. This year, $3,473. That's a difference of $1,777. For the purposes of this, we're just going to say $1,800 because I don't want to say $1,777 a bunch of times during this. So, why did this happen? Why did we sell over 100 less books and make $1,800 less revenue? It seems bad. I mean, it seems really, really bad. And it is bad, but it's not all bad. And we'll talk about why it's not all bad at the end. But for now, let's explore some of the reasons behind these 2 phenomena. First up, why are total book sales down this year? And so drastically down. So first, we didn't have a $5 product this year. Last year we had Paradise #1, which was the first issue of our Paradise season, and it was only $5. We had 81 copies of those last year, so just those alone accounted for almost all of the item losses that we suffered from this year. This year our lowest price point was $10. As I mentioned, last year it was $5. However, Paradise cost us $2.50 to make, so it's a very low margin item, which is why we took it away from selling it at shows. But lots of people like that $5 item. Lots of people buy that $5 item. We were interested in our highest profit margin that we can possibly get. So we focus on what's going to give us the highest profit margin. And unfortunately, Paradise, while it was great to have something for only $5, really did nothing to help move our margin along. Number 2, we didn't bundle nearly as much as last year, and our bundles were nowhere near as low. So last year we bundled up to 3 books for $20. Paradise, Ichabod, and either a children's book or a piece of original art. And all 3 of those were only $20, which was only $8 a thing. This year, the cheapest books we had were 2 for $30. Some of our kids' books were 2 for $20, but for our big comic books, it was 2 for $30. That's a lot different. It means that we had a lot less product sold, but far more profit margin on those books. Since Ichabod and our kids' books cost $2.50 each, and Ichabod cost $6, we were only making $9 profit on a $20 sale, which is very low margin at a con as big as San Diego. By doing away with those bundles, we sold less but made more on each sale. Number 3, we moved from an exhibitor table to small press. Traffic from last year to this year was less than half of what we had last year. At the exhibitor table, we were on a corner on the main aisle. In small press, we were in the back of the hall. I think at some points, Long Beach had more traffic than San Diego. And Long Beach has a fraction of the attendees. And if you believe like I do that sales are simply a product of a funnel, the more people you have at the top, meaning the more people you have at the bottom, the less people going into a funnel means less sales. Number 4, we didn't have any original art. Last year I made 60 original art pieces and sold it for anywhere from $5 to $20. In fact, a lot of our bundles also included a piece of original art. Having that original art really helped get people to the table and make sales. This year we had none of that. Number 5, we didn't discount our books nearly as much. Last year, we discounted Ichabod down to $10 during some hours of the con, and on one day we had a pay what you want special. That really helped them fly off the table. This year, we didn't do any of that. We get the price point $20 or 2 for $30, which means the lowest we sold a book for was $15, almost 50% more than our lowest cost last year. Which means if we sell a book for $15 instead of $10, we have to sell 50% less books to make the same amount of money. So in the end, the reduction in book sales came down to several factors. We increased the price of the lowest price item at our tables. We didn't bundle or cut rates of our books nearly as much as we had last year. We moved to a less traffic location and didn't have any original art. None of this would have been so bad except that total revenue was drastically down from this year. If we were able to keep revenue up and increase prices, this would have been a fabulous year. However, we weren't. So let's visit the reasons why total revenue was down for this year. So before we get into revenue, I want to define revenue. Revenue is every dollar that I brought in. It's not profit. It's not anything else except every dollar that I received comparatively to every dollar that I spent. So remember, we're $1,800 down from last year. And I'm going to talk about why the revenue and only the revenue was down. Number 1, my artist only ordered 100 books instead of 200. Last year, the artist I brought with me to a con ordered 200 copies of his book. This year, he only bought 100, which means right off the bat, we're going to have $800 less revenue than last year. Number 2, our booth costs were less than last year, so I received less revenue from that. Last year, our booth cost $250 more. Since I split the cost with my artist, that means I received $125 less in revenue. So far, this alone counts for $925 in less revenue, which means we only have to find $852 that is unaccounted for. So where did that revenue go? Well, part of it is location. We talked about this before. If you have less people coming by your booth, you can make less sales. If, as you believe as I do, sales are just about a funnel, if you throw less people into the top of that funnel, you're going to get less sales coming out. So that right there accounted for some of the total revenue loss. Now, we spent $125 less on this booth too, so the question is, was that location responsible for more than $125 in sales? I certainly think so, but you never know. So practically, where did this go? Well, 42 less people bought our large titles this year than last year. In 2015, 153 people bought Ichabod. This year, 111 people bought a combined Ichabod and Katrina. That's 42 less people, and it is exactly $852 in lost revenue. It is the exact amount that we have unaccounted for. And why were people buying less books? Well, part of it was the bundling, but another part of it was choice. I have a lot of choice on my table, and when you have a big con, it could mean decision paralysis. When you have so many decisions to make, when you're confronted with, would you rather have Ichabod or Katrina? Would you rather have a novel or a kid's book? It kind of freaks you out, gives you decision paralysis, and you decide to not get anything. I think it's a combination of both bundling and the decision paralysis, though. Number 5 plays off of number 4. We weren't offering a good enough deal on those titles to account for $852 more sales. People at Comic-Con are looking for a deal. Last year we had great deals. If people bought our books, they paid less than they would to buy them online and got exclusive stuff. They got prints, they got original art, and they got extra books. This year, we were very stingy with our deals, and it helped profit margin but didn't help overall sales. Had we taken those 42 main books and bundled it with the 61 books we were short this year to make an entire 103 short books, could have potentially made up that revenue, but at the expense of a lot of our profit margin. And for us, this year was about profit margin because we lost so much money last year, which we will talk about next. So let's talk about why this is not so bad. Because in the end, if you take into account the overall figures above, things would look pretty miserable for us. However, this is very short-sighted. You see, most people only look at revenue. If you look at revenue and units sold, it does look bad. But what we were going for this year was profit margin. We actually wanted to be in the black after Comic-Con. Last year was a horrible show for us financially. Even though we made $5,200, we barely got 50 people on our mailing list, and we lost $1,000 when all was said and done. Yes, we technically made more money, but we lost way more money. And we put in a horrible marketing effort. This year, in contrast, we had a 500% increase in mailing list signups and made more money. In fact, we were in the black for the first time at San Diego. I don't have the exact numbers yet. We won't have that to the end of the month, but we spent about $2,000 on expenses, and if we made about $3,500 total, we made a profit of $1,500 at this show. Now, considering we lost $1,000 last year, that is a change of $2,500 in 1 year. Now, that's insane, because it seems like from everything we've talked about so far, revenue was down, book sales were down, and yet we made $2,500 more in profit than we did last year. And how did we do that? Why did we do that? Because we worried more about profit and margins than selling every book we could. Last year, our margin was so razor thin that we would have to sell thousands of books just to break even. Remember, every book costs money to print. So if I bundle 3 books together, I have to factor in all of those costs in my final profit and loss statements. This year, we sold less books, but we sold it at a higher price point, and we turned a healthy profit at the show. Still, it would be nice to increase revenue and profit, right? Of course it would. So how do we fix this going forward? Well, we clearly need to think and rethink the deals that we offer if we want to increase revenue. The more you can pile on a deal, the more you can give exclusives that you can't get anywhere else, the better chance you have of closing that deal. But we don't want to increase our revenue at the expense of profits. So you have to find high margin items like exclusive prints to throw into a deal. But again, we don't want to discount profit margin just to get more revenue. In fact, we're going to be introducing hardcovers, which will increase our profit margin more and mean even less sales. But our goal is to increase our profit margin and have the healthiest profit that we can. And hopefully make the same that we do without those books, with our smaller books and our less profitable books. So if we can make $600 and only spend $50, that's way better than making $600 and spending $150. Even if it means we have more book units sold at that $150, it means that we have less revenue to play with. It means we have less profit to play with. So make sure you're not just looking at revenue, but you're also looking at profit when you take into account how your business is running. And with that, wannabes and creators, I want to remind you to please subscribe. You can go to thebusinessofart.us/iTunes to subscribe on iTunes, /Stitcher to subscribe on Stitcher, /Play to subscribe on Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. But please subscribe to us because subscription means that we get found by more people. I hope that was helpful, guys. I hope it wasn't too many numbers. My brain hurts a little bit. I love numbers, and my brain hurts a little bit from thinking about numbers for this episode, but I really hope that it helped you out and you learned something. If it did, leave some comments, rate us, review us 5 stars, and please, please, please subscribe. All right, wannabes and creators, I will see you next time.